All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching the film. I'd like to now welcome up on the stage our director, Case, and the legend himself, Gary Wilson.
Hello. It's a legend. He's fitted, too.
It's a beautiful night.
Yeah, did you have fun watching the film, Gary?
Yeah, I was just saying, it kind of brings a tear to your eyes. It's kind of sad, she loses her child, and yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very sad movie.
Yeah.
So how much milk did you use on the film?
Not like, I feel like milk has taken over like the last year and a half of my life, but it was only like, we probably only used like a gallon. It wasn't even that much.
Conserving the milk.
Yeah, it really wasn't that much. And when I watch it back, I'm like, yeah, there's just not really that much milk in it.
Good.
But it's there. It's a metaphor.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you first came about the idea for this film. You know, how long did you guys shoot for, and some of those first ideas that you had for it.
Well, for like anything, I feel like with a lot of art, sometimes you're kind of like sitting on something for like a long time, and you kind of just like let it sit. And I think it was like 10 years before I made this, I wrote like a short story about a milkman who would come and kind of confront this woman who like was too afraid to die, and she was older, and the milkman would kind of confront her. And me and Gary are huge Twilight Zone fans, and there's a Twilight Zone episode that stars like Robert Redford, which is like I think he plays like a police officer, and he comes into the house, and there's an old woman who's too afraid to pass away, and she's like totally kind of like not accepting it until he like, because he's like so handsome, because he's like Robert Redford, she's like kind of like okay, maybe I'll go. And Gary's kind of like handsome too, so
Speaking of the Twilight Zone, Rod Serling lived 10 miles from my house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
in Binghamton, New York. But
there's a lot of Twilight Zone lore.
I wonder why my parents didn't make more of a big deal about it, because to say, geez, he lives 10 miles from my house, and I would have loved to have met him, But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the film also it's based on a minor true story about my neighbor who, when I just moved to LA, she had lost her child, and everyone's dead now, so I don't feel too much like, it's not trying to be like TMZ gossip or whatever, but like the daughter was engaged to Keanu Reeves.
Oh.
And yeah, this is and she was also David Lynch's assistant on Mulholland Drive. So if you watch Mulholland Drive, it says in loving memory of a name, and that name, no, she was assistant on a film before Mulholland Drive, and so that Mulholland Drive was dedicated to her. And if you watch that movie, it'll say in memory of Jennifer Syme. And she was I never met her, but when I moved to LA, her mom was my neighbor, and a lot of the stuff that Maria I was also like a kid when I met her. It was kind of disturbing. I was like 8, and this kind of kooky old lady would always like let me into her house and tell me about how her daughter was killed in a car crash, and I could see the way the house was built out, and it was like the black water that she's bathing in the beginning is true. That's all what I saw, and all that stuff just totally kind of burned into my psyche, and then I think kind of just showed up a lot in this film for sure.
So I think my favorite quote or line in the whole movie is, when you have that 8mm playing in the background.
Yeah, that's my blood.
Yeah, it's your blood. Okay, there you go. How
blood,
deep,
sweat, and tears.
How deep was the cut, or how did that?
How deep was the cut?
yeah. How did you get that much?
Well, it's not as much blood as you'd think. It's on like 8mm,
Yeah.
so I just like tacked it. You just put a tack on your thumb,
Okay.
and you get a bunch, and then you're painting it on the film, and then
Yeah, good. But the quote is, "I watched the clouds part this morning, and a couple of tears fell out of them. So I'm happy they are feeling something because I can't say I have been." Talk a little bit about that quote and kind of that line of dialogue that kind of really sticks out to me, at least when I see this film.
I love that line. I don't really I don't remember writing it because I don't know. It's weird. It's like, I mean, I did write it, but like it's like I don't know. This is the first time I've really watched the film since it came out. It's only been out for like a year and a half, but it like feels like lived so much since then that I'm kind of like I'm like, this is the first time I feel like I'm watching it as a stranger. It's kind of cool, but like yeah. As I was making it, I felt in my life kind of more at a limbo kind of stage, and I loved the idea of like just a film only existing in that kind of limbo of grief, and that's kind of where that line is. Like, I guess like a lot of the mothers that you see during the 8mm scenes maybe are like maybe more abstractions of someone who isn't getting answers about like where their kid is, and that feeling of being alone and missing and no resolution or conclusion, and then you're kind of just like, you know, you're in your own existence, and so it's just, you know, it's just light, you know, just to if you've ever lost someone or someone's gone missing in your life, you know, it's like sometimes we write letters to them, like in our heads, and we just talk to them, and that's kind of where those lines were, for sure. Yeah.
So then how did you come to cast Gary? And other than being a huge fan of his, how was that process for you? And Gary, how was the process of being on a film set for you?
Well, I'm like a hardcore Gary Wilson fan. So like this is kind of a dream still, and I still get kind of starstruck when I see him. But like he made a film or an album called "You Think You Really Know Me" in 1977. That album I heard for the very first time when I was pretty young, and I think it totally kind of changed the way I looked at art and, you know, and film and all that. And I really appreciated the way that the album itself felt like a movie. There's kind of like an intro that comes in, and there's like characters that show up on the album, and it's like all him, and he plays all the music. And so, you know, that was just in terms of me becoming, you know, an artist, it was like that. He was always a huge influence for me, for sure. And the Milkman is like, I wrote it for Gary. You know, a lot of the aesthetics you see, the duct tape and the glasses, you know, that's just Gary. That's just who he is. Yeah.
Gary, how was it for you working with Case, and how was the experience of the film?
How did I get in the film? Or
No, how was your how was your experience? How was your experience being on set? And
I had a good time. It was interesting, you know. It was shot, I guess. It wasn't Justin Bieber.
That house, the house we were shooting in, I think Justin Bieber did a music video.
The night before.
Yeah, like the night before. That's what they told us. But I've yet to see the video.
right, they're gonna jack up that rental price.
Totally, yeah, Justin Bieber, and then the next night, Gary Wilson. Super sick.
But yeah, I had a good time. You know, I enjoyed the process, and I enjoyed the film.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, Gary has like a big background kind of in video art. His wife was a video artist, and he's like been in, you know, like short films and stuff like that, and you know, it's like an expansive artist. It didn't feel like that probably alien for him to be in a movie, maybe. Did it? Like, did it feel weird to be in a movie?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, man, never mind.
But yeah, I was always kind of into experimental films, you know, during a period of. My good friend Frank Roma, he used to make 16mm films when we were in junior high school and high school, and then I was into you know, at that period, 1967 or 8. I got into a lot of, you know, I was playing cello and bass in the school orchestra, and so I started writing a lot of real experimental music for our orchestra. And then that's how I got to meet John Cage. the composer John Cage, and he invited me to his house when I was 15 years old. And, you know, I look back at that sometimes and I think, how the hell did I pull that one off?
Yeah.
I'm a little
That's
boy.
how I feel with you here.
I'm a little boy from upstate New York. I was 15 or 14, but I submitted some music to John Cage, and then he invited me to his house, and then my mother drove me up there, and it was a couple 100 miles from Endicott, New York, and that was a big. So I'm trying to say, at that point I was into anything that was avant-garde, experimental, including art, plays, theater. I was a painter for a while during that period.
Yeah, a multifaceted art.
I was heavily influenced by Robert Rauschenberg and some of those artists. But yeah, so I was into that sort of thing, and the weirder the better sometimes, and but
Doesn't take a
anyways.
lot to pitch. It didn't take a lot to pitch the movie to Gary.
Talk to me about that opening scene with the birthing. Yeah, talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Well, it wasn't. It kind of took a year to get that shot because there was a ranch that my friends kind of lived in, and they kind of had a commune on the ranch. And I knew they had a bunch of animals, and I was making this film, and I was like, I always knew I wanted the opening shot to be a cow giving birth. So I was just like, let me know, when it's gonna happen, because they know, I guess, when it's about to happen. And where I got a text at 4 a.m. or something, it's gonna happen, and I just grabbed my camera and just jotted it down there. So that shot was probably at 6 a.m. or something. What you're seeing?
Awesome.
Yeah. Kind of a miracle I got that, because who knows? I was like, man, another year. Well, I don't know.
You would have just waited for
I don't know what I would have done, and maybe. I would, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I probably would have waited. It's important.
And if you don't mind sharing the story about the baby cow that's in the field, how you came apart, how you came to...
Oh, the fetus cow?
Yeah, how'd you come to get the fetus cow? Because
yeah, a lot of people... One time I was doing Q&A in Portland, and someone was like, was that a chocolate cow? And I was like, what are you talking about? And then, I was like... It was so weird, and I was like, oh, and it took me so long to figure out what they were talking about. I'm like, oh, it was the cow fetus. Yeah, getting a cow fetus is kind of difficult, but the process that I used, which I can share with all of you in case you need it to get a cow fetus one day, is I just pretended to be a science teacher for an elementary school. And I needed it for my dissection class, and they didn't ask a lot of questions. And then I just gave them my address, and one day a cow fetus came in the mail. I still have it too. It's cool. I put it in formaldehyde in a jar, and it's above my TV. It's every time I watch a movie, it's just there.
Just hanging out.
Yeah.
Good decor.
Yeah, I don't think my roommate likes it very much. She always hides it.
Your roommate hides the fetus.
She always hides the cow fetus.
Oh, okay. Okay. Before we open up to questions for the audience, tell us a little bit about Hannah and the process of working with her, and kind of how that came to be, and what were your guys' process like, kind of forming her character.
Well, when I made the movie, I knew I wanted Gary to be the milkman, but the lead, Hannah, who's Maria, I didn't know who I wanted to play it, and I was doing a lot. I think I put an open call out, and I was going through audition tapes and stuff like that, and no one was really grabbing me that much. And in my head, she looked really different. I was just kind of thinking who she was based on in real life, and so I was just she was in my head. She was older, and then then I was watching this movie called Hustlers. Have you ever seen that? Has anyone ever seen Hustlers?
The Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, I think Jennifer Lopez is in it. Hannah's in that movie, and she kind of has I was just looking at her, and I was like, wow, her eyes just kind of felt like a cow, kind of they were so expressive.
Did you
and
tell her that?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe in She was into it though. I don't know if it was. I know that sounds like you remind me of a cow. Like could be like offensive, but like it was like really in all the way. It's like the calf that you see with the eyes in the beginning. I just felt like there was a connection there. And to be honest, it's like we made this movie like with no money like at all. And sometimes all it takes is like someone to be that excited about it. And me and Hannah, we talked for like a year before we start shooting. We talk a lot about it, and so. Just like if you're that down, then that's sometimes all you need. She like flew out from Wyoming, like stayed on my couch for like 2 weeks, and we shot all her scenes.
Awesome.
Now she has 2 kids, which is crazy. When we were shooting this, she was like single, and then like because it's only been a year and a half, and now she's married and has like 2 kids, and I was like, man, I was like telling AJ a little bit before that, I was just crazy how time can fly like that, It's like she has a whole family now.
Has anything changed since the first time you saw it at the premiere till now for you? Since it's been a while?
Like my emotions?
Yeah. How do you feel when you watch it?
Pretty chunk. Like, I don't know. I'm just like, it's like really what? I just kind of like am thinking about like every time I don't know, because I made it, sometimes it's kind of hard, but it's like every time I look at a frame, I'm kind of like, I remember all of the things that it took to get that frame together, just because it was like just me, kind of, and like it was like sometimes like you look at like a piece of like the beds that the girls were sleeping on, the what's it called, like the straw, and like it's just like that straw was so hard to get, and like I had to get like trucks to like bring it to this set because I couldn't, but I wanted their beds to be straw, things like that like took months, and it's just like I don't know, I was just like, man, this is like we really made this with like no money at all. So it's like all it takes is like one person to come, and then it's like a success because it was like no money. So it's cool that people are here.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
it's awesome. Before we do audience Q&As, is there something you want to mention? What's coming up next for you and your next film?
Yes, I'm writing a new movie called To Euthanize a Still Fluttering Spirit. It's going to be a loose biopic on the priest Damien. His name's Father Damien. He was like a priest who like lived in Hawaii in like a leper colony, and the movie is like kind of an exploration of the kind of person who would choose to live in a leper colony. I think it's the best thing I've ever written. I think it's going to be really good.
Awesome. So right now we'll open up to any questions from the audience. If you have them, raise your hand high, and we'll get to you. Oh, yeah, we'll go back there first. Yep.
Like when Hannah drinks it? That was just regular milk. Oh, are you talking about like logistically or like metaphorically? Well, that is up to interpretation. What do you think?
Gary, what do you think?
What was the question?
Do you think that you're an angel in the movie?
Oh. Well, that's very nice.
Man, there was like a podcast recently that I was listening to. It was a bunch of people from England that were watching the movie, and they were like arguing if the milkman was a serial killer or not. And that's great. It's up to interpretation.
Return of the Milkman,
Yeah, absence of milk too.
Yeah, part 2.
part 2.
Yeah.
All right,
Milkman's revenge.
Any other audience questions? Yeah, right here.
My relationship with milk and cows. I mean, this is the biggest answer, I guess. Like was my relationship to it, but I was just, I like milk. I drink it sometimes, but I like cows too. I eat them sometimes. But I regret eating them. I think it's terrible. I hope one day I can go vegan. But I guess that was part of it too. And a lot of it's like guilty about that stuff. But it just felt I just like I don't I just the more because the film was actually like the original idea with the milkman coming in, it didn't have the missing child aspect to it. It was just someone who was grieving, but you didn't know why. And then as soon as the missing child stuff kind of got thought out, it seemed just like the kind of the metaphor that it felt, like milk is getting kind of removed from, cows without their will, and they're being stripped away from their children, the same way a mother, would deal with losing a child. And it just kind of felt like, but there's like, also positivity to milk. It's like you can come back to it, and you can. It's just, does that help? Yeah. I mean, I guess I could go on, but okay, sure. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Yeah, we'll go right here in the front. Yeah.
The milk in the Ziploc. It was. It felt. It felt like it was milk that was kind of being unused. That's kind of like, it just was like there's no one there's no kid to give it to. And it was just sad. So I don't know. It was just wasted milk. The absence of milk.
Any other questions? Yeah, we'll do in the middle right here. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll go you. Well, yeah, we'll go you first, then we'll go you back there. All right. No, we'll go here in the front. I'm sorry. I'm probably pointing like in the very middle, so I'm doing a bad job at that. But yeah, right here in the front.
So a lot. Like it was just kind of, like filmmaking. I mean, this is my second film, but probably my more realized than my first film. But more about myself, I guess. It was like, I mean, there's private things I was going through while like that are kind of a reason the film exists that I just had to work through by just making the film, I guess. And it felt very kind of healing. I always have this idea after I make a film, like it's like I'll fly away at the end, and that's the song, and like I'll finally feel peace in my life, and it's this like spiritual quest, and then it doesn't really work. But then I mean, you do feel it does work in these momentary moments, but then you live life again, and then you're like, ooh, like and then you feel it again, but then you just make another movie.
Yeah, we'll go. Yeah, right there. Yep.
She was asking about.
We're asking about the sound, Gary.
The sound. Well, yeah, the sound just in general. Mm-hmm. I mean, even using someone like Gary, I'll talk. Even using someone like Gary who like uses a lot of kind of different sounds in his music, and he can talk a little about that, and then I can talk about what the sound in the movie meant. But when you're making like kind of interesting sounds, in your music, how do you think of those ideas? Because then I can kind of talk about that. Because there's but.
Yeah, I think the music that was on there kind of fit the film.
Right.
It had its, emotional times when yeah.
Well, it was kind of funny because, like, a lot of people ask me, like, because Gary's a musical genius, but, like, a lot of people ask me, like, why didn't he, like, score the film? But there's the guy who scored the film is this guy named Aaron Dillaway, and
he did a good job.
Yeah, he does these like tape loops and these like thought, and I liked the idea of someone who was like going through something they couldn't get over. Kind of they were in this liminal space that like using a score that was using tapes that kind of loop and click. That's like what you're hearing is literal tapes kind of being manipulated, and it felt kind of the emotional state of a lot of the characters for me. Does that help? Okay.
Do we have any other questions? Yeah, we'll go all the way in the back. Yep.
So, yeah, the film was completed, and I had him in mind, and we did it all long distance. I didn't meet Aaron in person until the premiere for the first time, but yeah, I just did it in the public library by my house, and I would send him a raw version of the movie without any music, and then like from this timestamp to this timestamp with like a huge description of like the emotions I was feeling and like how to translate those emotions. And it was kind of a crazy process because it was like his computer kept dying like during it, and then he was like, "Oh, I'm only like," he's like, "There's a miracle today, like this is these like beautiful score that he did," and then he'd be like, "If we waited anymore, the computer would crash. I would have lost it all." And it was like felt very like on the edge in this way. That was kind of fun to work with.
Yeah, we'll go right here. We'll do like 2 or 3 more.
What editing software did you use?
Final Cut, which is kind of like, I don't know. I'm for my job right now. We're using DaVinci, and I'm like, that's kind of the way to go. You should use DaVinci. Like, it's free. So I'm a schmuck for using Final Cut. I feel like Final Cut's kind of out of the door. I was actually just talking to someone about this today. It feels like he was like, "Why do you do that? It's out of the door." But I'm like, "Because I paid for it, so I'm gonna use it." There.
Yeah, we'll go right here and right there. Yeah.
So the thing that kind of got the biggest reaction out of me were those white plastered polka dot underpant wearing demons. And I don't want to ask something so general. It's like, tell me how it is, because I know there's so much in this movie that's up to interpretation. But I guess I'm just curious, what like was this like representation that was in them, and how does it sort of relate to this milk storyline and everything? Because I know like they're all painted white, and I know it's obviously white.
Mhm.
They presumably kidnapped these children or are keeping them there.
Sure.
What's that versus like this milk thing and everything getting strong? I guess
Well, I guess just for me, like there's like you could deal with like real kidnappers and you can make them look scary, but I didn't want to give that like a dignified look. I just want, it's like these are kind of like low people. It's like kind of monsters. Like the people who obviously kidnap children are like the biggest monsters. You know what I mean? It's like so. With going through the monster approach, it was just kind of like I just wanted them to just be like stupid. Like like the kids were able to like push them over and like beat them, and they just like were like Looney Tune dummies. I don't know. It was kind of more of like an illustrated look or feel of just dopey men. Or just kind of also like look like, I like the idea of like kind of look like a crayon drawing, but like come to life. Yeah.
All right, we'll do one more question. And Case and Gary will be in the lobby too after for a little bit if you have any questions or want to get a Blu-ray or VHS
Yeah, you want to sign
signed as well.
We'll sign
or a
some
poster,
stuff.
Yeah. Do we have any more? Do we have
Some
any
in the
more?
back.
Yeah, all the way in the back over there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, I'm about to work on a new one. I would love if Gary was part of it. Yeah, we haven't really talked about that, but I'd love it. But it's like it would have to be again like Gary has such a defined kind of artistic persona that you would want that persona to fit the part. So I would it would have to be something that was like in the Gary Wilson universe.
Well, Gary, do you have anything else to add before we say goodnight?
I got a new album.
Woo!
It's coming out.
What's the name of the album?
Awesome.
Come On Mary.
Come on, Mary.
And it's scheduled for June 13th is the release. And so that's always interesting when it's kind of like, I suppose, giving birth, it becomes, an obsession in some ways when you're doing the album. But it's on Cleopatra Records, and it should be soon. It's coming out in a week or two.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, thank you. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like I mentioned my other film, the one I'm working on now. Like honestly, if anyone would would like to collab or talk about that with me, you can come talk to me in the lobby or follow me on Instagram, talk to me. Yeah, it's called To Euthanize a Still Fluttering Spirit. AJ is going to help produce it. Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. So let's collab.
Thank you, everyone, so much for coming out. Thank you to the Frida once again. Thank you to Gary for coming all this way for the Q&A. We really appreciate it. And come back to the
Legend.
Frida to see a film soon, okay?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.